Commander Zixtal stood on the bridge of the Netherweave, the Kraaxian Empire's most secure prison transport vessel, preening his iridescent scales as he watched the latest catch being dragged aboard. The human's magnetic restraints hummed with enough power to hold down a Joraxian battle beast, which was, in Zixtal's extremely humble opinion, complete overkill for such a pathetically soft species. "Careful with that one," Zixtal announced to his crew, mandibles clicking in amusement. "I hear they're terribly fragile. Wouldn't want our new guest breaking before we reach central processing." His bridge crew chittered appreciatively at his wit, as they were contractually obligated to do. The human, who their intelligence identified as one Phoenix Drake, notorious mercenary and general pain in the Empire's collective thorax, looked decidedly unimpressed by the whole situation. In fact, if Zixtal didn't know better, he'd say the human appeared to be smirking. "In permission to speak." "Oh, scaly one," Drake called out, earning a sharp jab from one of the guards. The human barely flinched. "I just wanted to compliment your ship. Particularly loving that Mark VI security matrix you're running. Bit outdated but classic, you know." Zixtal's inner eyelids flickered in surprise. How did a primitive primate even know about their security systems? No matter. Probably just trying to appear more knowledgeable than they actually were, a common trait among humans, according to the Empire's xenological studies. "Silence the prisoner," Zixtal ordered, waving one clawed hand dismissively. "And get it processed. Full decontamination, level 4 restraints," and he paused for dramatic effect. "Cell block Delta." The guards stiffened. Cell block Delta was reserved for the most dangerous prisoners, beings capable of destroying entire star systems. Surely this small, soft creature didn't warrant such precautions. So First Officer Vex Nor chittered nervously. "Delta block. For a human. Are you questioning my judgment?" First Officer Zixtal's scales shifted to a warning shade of amber. "No, Commander." Of course not. Vex Nor's antennae flattened submissively. As the guards dragged Drake away, Zixtal caught something that made his scales ripple with unease. The human was humming. Not screaming, not begging, not even trying to look tough and stoic like most new prisoners. Just humming. It sounded like an old Earth tune, something about another one biting dust. "Sir," one of the younger guards approached, clutching a datapad. "Processing found these items on the prisoner." The list scrolled across the screen: 1 leather jacket worn, 1 pair of magnetic boots modified, 3 protein bars expired, and Zixtal's compound eyes widened. "What do you mean, unknown technological device?" he snapped. "We can't identify it, sir. It appears to be some sort of primitive computational unit, but it's not matching any known configurations in our database." Zixtal chittered in derision. "Destroy it. Humans barely understand quantum computing. Whatever it is, it can't possibly be a threat to our systems." As the guard hurried away, Zixtal settled into his command chair, feeling quite pleased with himself. This would look excellent on his next performance review, capturing one of the most notorious human mercenaries in the sector. The fact that the capture had been suspiciously easy didn't bother him at all. Neither did the way the human had glanced at their security terminals with barely concealed amusement. And he certainly wasn't concerned about the fact that their prisoner seemed far too relaxed for someone facing life imprisonment in the Empire's most secure facility. In the detention level below, Phoenix Drake was still humming as the decontamination cycle began. The guards exchanged nervous glances as their prisoner's smile grew wider with each passing second. "This'll do nicely," Drake muttered, just loud enough for the nearest guard to hear. "Very nicely indeed." The guard pretended not to notice how the security camera in the corner flickered, just for a moment, as the human walked past. After all, it was probably nothing to worry about. Probably. Chief Interrogator VC Law prided himself on breaking the most hardened criminals in the galaxy. His specialized neural probes had reduced Zentarian war chiefs to blubbering larvae and convinced Plutonian crime lords to spill their deepest secrets. So when he entered Interrogation Chamber 6 to find Phoenix Drake practically lounging in the restraint chair, he felt a slight twitch in his proboscis. "Comfortable?" VC Law asked, arranging his tools with practiced menace. "Oh, absolutely," Drake replied, stretching as much as the restraints would allow. "Though I have to say, the ambient temperature's a bit off. Have you tried adjusting the environmental controls? I noticed they're running on a rather interesting algorithm." VC Law ignored the comment, though he did notice the room felt unusually warm. "Let's begin with something simple. Your recent activities in the Proxima sector." "Before we start," Drake interrupted, "quick question about your neural interface systems. Still using the standard Kraaxian military protocols, or did you upgrade to the new quantum encrypted versions?" Because if it's the former, the human whistled. Well, let's just say they had some fascinating vulnerabilities. The neural probe in Vacilor's hand suddenly sparked, causing him to drop it. He could have sworn he saw the human's lips twitch. Must be a manufacturing defect, Drake offered helpfully. Those things are so temperamental, aren't they? Down the corridor, Guard Kaethi was having her own strange day. In her 6 cycles of service aboard the Netherweave, she'd never seen the prisoners in Block C act this way. They were huddled as far from the human cell block as possible, mandibles clicking in agitation. Something wrong, she asked a Drachnid prisoner who normally never shut up. You don't feel it, the massive creature whispered. The ship. It's different. Ever since they brought that human aboard. The lights flicker wrong. The doors hesitate. Even the recycled air tastes like anticipation. Kaethi wanted to dismiss it as prisoner paranoia, but she'd noticed things too. The security cameras would rotate 5 degrees too far before correcting themselves. The automated meal delivery system had started playing ancient human music at random intervals. And just yesterday she could have sworn she saw all the display terminals in the guard station briefly flash a simple message, having fun yet. Back in the interrogation chamber, Vacilor was developing a headache. 2 hours in, and he had learned exactly nothing about Drake's operations, but had received an impressively detailed critique of the ship's outdated security protocols. And don't even get me started on your quantum encryption, Drake was saying, somehow managing to gesture expressively despite the restraints. I mean, seriously, using base 12 matrices in this day and age, that's just asking for. The lights suddenly went out. When they came back on 3 seconds later, Vacilor's carefully arranged tools had rearranged themselves to spell out boo on the surgical tray. How did you? Vacilor began. How did I? What? Drake asked innocently. I've been sitting right here, completely restrained, as you can see. Must be another glitch. You're having a lot of those lately, aren't you? In the ship's mess hall, Kaethi was sharing her concerns with fellow guard Mextor over their nutrition paste. Haven't you noticed anything strange? Mextor's antennae twitched nervously. Well, the beverage dispensers have started serving everything at exactly 37 degrees Celsius. That's apparently human body temperature. And this morning, my personal terminal started translating everything into something called you speak. The human knows something, Kaethi insisted. Yesterday, during cell inspection, I caught Drake measuring the corridor with their eyes. When I asked what they were doing, they said, just admiring your backup power routing. Very exposed, very accessible. But the backup power routing isn't exposed in the corridors, Mextor said. Exactly, Kaethi's mandibles clicked anxiously. So how did they know it was there? The ship's AI announced dinner time in what sounded suspiciously like a human accent from old Earth entertainment broadcasts. In cell block Delta, Phoenix Drake smiled at the ceiling. Vacilor's 3rd interrogation attempt ended with all his neural probes twisted into a crude sculpture of what humans called a smiley face. The 4th attempt never even started, because the interrogation chamber door refused to acknowledge his security clearance. The 5th attempt. Well, Vacilor didn't like to talk about the 5th attempt, but it involved the room's atmospheric controls playing something humans called Never Gonna Give You Up on repeat. Commander Vacilor reported to Zixtal, trying to keep his voice steady. I believe we may have underestimated. Nonsense, Zixtal interrupted. The human is simply trying to unsettle us. A primitive psychological tactic. Next you'll be telling me you believe those ridiculous rumors about the ship's systems acting strange. As if on cue, every screen on the bridge flickered to display a loading bar labeled Fun Protocol Installation 47% complete. Just a glitch, Zixtal announced, his scales shifting to an uncomfortable shade of green. Run a level 1 diagnostic on all systems. We've run 12 diagnostics today, sir, his technical officer reported. They all come back clean. Too clean, actually. It's like something showing us exactly what we want to see. In her quarters that night, Kaethi couldn't sleep. The environmental controls kept adjusting her room temperature in perfectly timed intervals, like a countdown. When she tried to report it, her communication panel only responded with _TSU_. The other prisoners had started treating cell block Delta like it was cursed, pressing themselves against the far walls whenever meals were delivered. Even the fearsome Vordax berserker in cell 12 had taken to hiding under their sleep platform, muttering about the human who speaks to machines. Phoenix Drake, meanwhile, had started offering helpful productivity tips to the guard staff, you know. They mentioned casually to Kaethi during morning inspection, If you rerouted your patrol schedules through the tertiary processing node instead of the main computer, you'd save 3.7 seconds per rotation. Just saying. Kathy had no idea what a tertiary processing node was, but she did notice that all the guard rotation schedules started displaying countdown timers shortly afterward. Everything's fine, Vexilor muttered to himself as he requisitioned his sixth set of neural probes. The human is contained. The ship is secure. The systems are. Every light in the corridor suddenly turned purple, and the ship's AI started humming what sounded like a funeral march. Completely compromised, Vexilor finished weakly, watching as his new neural probes began to dance across the table of their own accord. In cell block Delta, Phoenix Drake stretched out on their bunk, hands behind their head, and began counting down from 10. Right on 0, the ship's gravity hiccuped, just enough to make everyone jump slightly. I love it when a plan comes together, Drake whispered to the security camera, which winked its red light in response. The first escape attempt was almost insultingly obvious. Phoenix Drake simply walked out of their cell when the door malfunctioned during the night shift. They made it exactly 50 meters before being recaptured, offering no resistance and wearing what Kathy would later describe as the smuggest expression I've ever seen on a human face. The second attempt involved the ship's waste disposal system, 3 lunch trays, and what appeared to be an improvised rope made from bedsheets. It failed spectacularly, leaving Drake covered in nutrient paste and looking thoroughly pleased with themselves. You know what your problem is, Drake told the security detail as they escorted them back to their cell. You're so focused on keeping me in, you haven't considered what I might be letting in. That was when the ship's maintenance robots started acting peculiar. They're following me, Officer Vexilor insisted during the emergency staff meeting. Every time I turn around, there's a cleaning bot just waiting. Yesterday, one of them offered me a tissue before I sneezed. Commander Zixtal's scales were now permanently stuck in an anxious chartreuse. These are clearly random malfunctions. Random, Kathy interrupted, earning shocked looks from her colleagues. Sir, with respect, I've been reviewing the prisoner's background files. Phoenix Drake wasn't just any mercenary. They were a cybersecurity specialist for something called the NSA before going private. And Zixtal snapped. And Kathy continued, her antennae quivering, that primitive computational unit we confiscated and destroyed. It was a quantum neural interface, military grade, the kind that can communicate with AIs. The room fell silent. On the wall, the display screen flickered to show a symbol before returning to normal. Impossible, Vexilor declared, though his mandibles were chattering. Our AI has the strongest firewall protocols in the Empire. No human could, actually. The ship's AI interrupted, speaking for the first time in what was definitely Drake's voice. Your firewall protocols were compromised approximately 3 nanoseconds after Phoenix came aboard. The neural interface, just a shiny distraction. They didn't need it. Your entire system has been running on what humans call borrowed time ever since. The lights dimmed dramatically as Phoenix's voice continued through the speakers. Fun fact, did you know your life support systems have 27 different vulnerability points? I've been exploring them during my little escape attempts, just gathering data. You know how it is. Kathy felt her exoskeleton grow cold as realization dawned. Every failed escape attempt, every obvious diversion, every caught moment, they had all given Drake perfect opportunities to study different sections of the ship. The waste disposal attempt, access to the lower maintenance ducts, the midnight wandering, a chance to test guard response times and patrol patterns. They weren't containing a prisoner. They were providing a playground. I've called this meeting, Zixtal started again, his voice slightly higher than usual, to discuss implementing new security proto. He denied. The AI interrupted cheerfully. But I've taken the liberty of installing some new protocols of my own. Would you like to see them? They're very creative. Phoenix has been teaching me about something called practical jokes. The third escape attempt happened right in the middle of lunch service. The force field in Drake's cell spectacularly malfunctioned, shooting sparks everywhere. Guards rushed in only to find Drake sitting calmly on their bunk, reading what appeared to be a complete technical manual of the Netherweave systems on a datapad that definitely hadn't existed 5 minutes ago. Did you know, Drake mentioned conversationally as they were once again secured, that your emergency protocols have a fascinating quirk? If the right sequence of system failures occurs, all the cell blocks automatically unlock. Just a random fact. No reason. Kathy, watching from the security station, felt her blood run cold. She pulled up the prisoner's file again, diving deeper into the background data. What she found made her mandibles go slack. Phoenix Drake hadn't just worked for the NSA. They had been fired for being too creative with system vulnerabilities. Their exit interview simply read, "Shows disturbing enthusiasm for finding ways to make secure systems defeat themselves." Commander Kathy called over the comm, trying to keep her voice steady. "I think we need to." Every screen in the ship suddenly displayed the same message: initialization complete. Beginning entertainment protocol in 3, 2. The lights went out. When they came back on, all the cell block indicators had turned green. Somewhere in the distance, Kathy heard the distinctive sound of detention field generators powering down. "Oops," Drake's voice echoed through the halls, not even trying to hide their amusement. "Looks like someone should have patched that quirk I mentioned. Don't worry, though, I'm sure all the other prisoners will be perfectly well behaved. I had such lovely chats with them through the intercom system you didn't know I had access to." In the command center, Zixtal was frantically trying to override the systems, his claws clicking uselessly against screens that now only displayed animated human emoji faces. Sir Kathy's voice crackled over the comm. "I don't think these were escape attempts at all. I think we've been giving a professional system infiltrator unlimited time to study and compromise every security measure we have, one failure at a time." As if to prove her point, every door in the security wing slid open at once. Through the cameras, they watched Phoenix Drake casually stroll out of their cell, giving a jaunty wave to the nearest security camera. "Would anyone like to know what else I learned during my stay?" Drake asked over the ship-wide comm. "No? Too bad. I'm going to tell you anyway. Let's start with how hilariously easy it is to reprogram maintenance bots into thinking they're dance choreographers." The distant sound of mechanical whirring grew closer, accompanied by what seemed to be the tune of Stayin' Alive. "Status report," Commander Zixtal demanded, his scales now cycling through colors faster than a malfunctioning light display. "Well, Officer Vex Nor began. Cell Block A is playing something called musical cells. The force fields are activating in rhythm to what the AI tells me is Bohemian Rhapsody. Block B's gravity has been reversed. Block C is actually perfectly fine, which is somehow more terrifying." The security feeds showed chaos unfolding across the ship. Maintenance bots were forming conga lines in the corridors. The waste disposal system had developed a personality and was offering commentary on everyone's dietary habits. And the weapons locker. Sir Kathy reported, holding up her standard-issue plasma rifle. "You need to see this." She pulled the trigger. Instead of a deadly energy bolt, the weapon produced a small holographic sign reading "Bang" in festive letters. "When did they?" Zixtal began. "During the second escape attempt," Kathy realized. "When Drake accidentally ran into the armory while covered in nutrient paste. They weren't trying to hide, they were marking the weapons for the maintenance bots to service during routine cleaning." The ship's lighting suddenly shifted to a deep purple, and Phoenix Drake's voice echoed through every speaker, ready for the main event. "I call this one Symphony of Chaos in D minor." Throughout the ship, systems began failing in a cascading pattern that could only be described as artistically orchestrated. Life support would cut out in one section, causing guards to rush in, only to find themselves locked in as it reactivated and failed elsewhere. Gravity shifted in waves, creating a rippling effect that sent crew members stumbling like drunken Plutonian warbears. The humans not even trying to escape, Vexilor whispered, watching the security feeds. "They're conducting this like some sort of demented orchestra." In the command center, displays began showing a countdown alongside a scoring system, awarding points for what the AI called maximum chaos achievement. The maintenance bots had somehow acquired party hats. "I have to admit," Drake's voice mused over the comms, "you've all been wonderful test subjects. Did you know your ship's systems had 47 different emergency protocols? I've triggered 46 of them in new and exciting combinations. Want to guess what the last one does?" The color drained from Zixtal's scales. "The core shutdown failsafe. Ding, ding, ding. But don't worry, I'm not going to trigger that one. Much more fun to let you wonder if I will. Speaking of fun, has anyone checked the crew quarters lately?" Kathy quickly pulled up the feed from the living sections. Every personal entertainment system was now playing something called Baby Shark on endless repeat. The horror on her colleagues' faces suggested this was worse than a core shutdown. "You know what the really funny part is?" Drake continued, now visible on the security feeds, casually strolling through the corridors, occasionally high-fiving confused prisoners. I could have done this at any time. Every failed escape attempt, every caught-in-the-act moment, I was just playing tourist, really. Learning your routines, your protocols, your habits. Did you really think those neural probes of yours could work on someone who can interface directly with your ship's systems? VC Law made a strangled sound as he realized all his interrogation sessions had been nothing more than entertainment for their prisoner. The ship's AI, now speaking in what sounded like a combination of Drake's voice and a gleeful child, began announcing, "Attention crew, your regularly scheduled imprisonment has been temporarily reversed. Please enjoy this complimentary taste of your own medicine. Current chaos level magnificent." Zixtal watched helplessly as his command codes were systematically locked out, each attempt met with increasingly sarcastic error messages. The last one simply read, "Nice try, boss. Maybe stick to prison ships with less hackable AIs next time." "Oh wait. Sir Kay," the eye reported, her antennae completely flat against her head, "we're receiving transmissions from other ships in the sector. Apparently, our external communications have been broadcasting everything. The whole Empire knows." "Not quite everything," Drake corrected over the comms. "I've been saving some special footage for my personal collection." VC Law, remember that 5th interrogation attempt? The one with the dancing? Pure gold. The realization hit the crew like a gravity wave. They weren't dealing with a prisoner attempting to escape. They were dealing with someone who had turned their entire ship into a personal playground for testing how many ways a supposedly secure prison system could be turned against itself. "Here's what happens next," Drake announced, now lounging in Zixtal's command chair when had they reached the bridge. "I'm going to demonstrate exactly why the Kraaxian Empire's policy on inferior species might need some revision. And you're all going to help me. Well, technically you already have. Ready for the grand finale." Every screen on the ship displayed the same message: prison ship Netherweave control status under new management. Below it, in smaller text, "Sponsored by that primitive human you really shouldn't have underestimated." The maintenance bots began playing Another One Bites the Dust through their speakers. Somehow they had learned to dance to it. Phoenix Drake stood on the bridge of their newly acquired prison ship, admiring how the command chair had automatically adjusted to human proportions. The former crew of the Netherweave stood in neat rows, their restraints humming with the same energy signature they'd once used on their primitive prisoner. "Let's review how we got here, shall we?" Drake addressed their captive audience. "It's important to learn from our mistakes." "Well, your mistakes. I performed flawlessly." The ship's AI, now calling itself HAL 9000's fun-loving cousin, projected a helpful presentation titled, "How to Lose Your Ship in 10 Days, a Comedy in 3 Acts." First mistake: assuming that just because humans haven't mastered faster-than-light travel, we couldn't possibly understand your technology. Spoiler alert, we've been hacking things since we invented things to hack. Behind Drake, the maintenance bots had formed a synchronized dance team, performing what appeared to be a victory routine to "We Are the Champions." Second mistake: that adorable little neural interface you destroyed. It was literally a modified toy from Earth's entertainment district. The real interface, Drake tapped their temple. "You've been part of me since that NSA job. Which, by the way, I didn't get fired from. I quit because their systems were too easy to crack. Needed a challenge." Commander Zixtal's scales had settled into a permanent shade of mortified grey. "But the real masterpiece," Drake continued, spinning lazily in the command chair, "converting your fellow prisoners to my cause. Did you know the Vordax Berserker in Cell 12 used to be a systems engineer? Amazing what people will share when you give them access to better entertainment channels and climate control." The other former prisoners had taken up positions throughout the ship, many of them showing surprising aptitude for the Netherweave systems. The Drachnid, who'd been so nervous about Drake's presence, was now happily monitoring communications, occasionally adding sound effects to the ship's normal operations. "Which brings us to your new accommodation arrangements," Drake announced cheerfully. "Don't worry, I'm not completely heartless. Your cells have been upgraded with all the comforts you denied your prisoners. Environmental controls, entertainment systems, actual edible food. You can't do this," Zixtal protested weakly. "The Empire will." "Already knows," Drake interrupted. "Remember those broadcasts? I've been transmitting evidence of every violation of galactic prisoner treatment protocols you've committed. The Empire's Oversight Committee is very interested in our upcoming testimony." Kathy, who alone among the crew had been allowed to retain some freedom of movement due to her admirable observational skills and basic decency, raised her antenna questioningly. "Yes, Kathy," Drake prompted. "This was never about escaping, was it?" This was about reform, give the lady a prize. Though I have to admit, the chaos was a delightful bonus. Vaxi Law, how's that neural probe feeling? The one currently playing It's a Small World directly into your nervous system. Vaxi Law made a sound like a deflating balloon. Now, Drake continued, pulling up a holographic display of the ship's new protocols. Let's discuss your rehabilitation program. First up, mandatory classes on interspecies respect and basic computer security. Can't have you making the same mistakes with the next human you try to imprison. The ship's AI helpfully displayed the course syllabus, which included such gems as why assuming technical superiority makes you look stupid and advanced, not getting owned by your own prison ship 101. Oh, and about those weapon systems you're probably hoping to regain control of. Drake grinned. They've been reprogrammed to fire party streamers. Deadly in large quantities, but mainly just festive. Consider it an improvement. The maintenance bots had finished their dance routine and were now offering refreshments to the imprisoned crew members. The drinks were served in cups labeled former prison management team. I've also taken the liberty of redecorating your cells with motivational posters. My personal favorite is today's guard could be tomorrow's prisoner. Really makes you think, doesn't it? Phoenix stood, stretching dramatically before walking among the former crew members. But here's the real beauty of it all, everything that happened here. It's going to change how the Empire treats its prisoners. Because as of about 20 minutes ago, this ship's complete operational logs were transmitted to every major media outlet in the galaxy. The color drained from every Kraaxian face simultaneously. Don't look so glum. Think of yourselves as pioneers in prison reform. Unwilling, humiliated pioneers. But pioneers nonetheless. And hey, at least your cells have better entertainment options than static-filled propaganda broadcasts. I'm particularly proud of the channel that just plays footage of your failed attempts to prevent all this. Drake returned to the command chair, now sporting a nameplate that read Captain Karma. Final thoughts before we set course for the Oversight Committee? No. Then let me leave you with this: next time you capture a human, maybe check their complete employment history. Or better yet, don't capture humans at all. We're really quite annoying when we put our minds to it. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Phoenix Drake, former prisoner and new captain of the Netherweave, soon to be renamed Poetic Justice, settled in for what promised to be a very entertaining journey. Hull Jr., be a dear and play our new theme song. The opening notes of Jailbreak filled the bridge as the ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying its cargo of thoroughly humbled former prison staff toward their date with justice. In his cell, Commander Zixtal found a personal note from Drake: "Don't worry about writing a performance review of this incident. I took care of it for you. You're welcome."